Thank you for joining. Welcome to the Forge Partner Talk series. This week, our episode focuses on remote construction site management. I'm Sanjana Chand. I'm the Forge Developer Marketing Manager. At the end of today's panel, I will be asking our guests the questions you submit. So please feel free to ask any questions you like under the Q&A tab. The session will also be recorded. Today's session is hosted by Emily Sherbensky. Please, Emily, take it away.
Thank you, Sanjana. All right, good morning or good afternoon. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm really excited to focus our August Forge Partner Talks on construction topics. And today we are talking to three great partners who help construction companies handle remote monitoring of their sites. And this is something that is becoming more and more relevant in today's climate as we see the number of people on a job site limited and distanced, and there's an extra emphasis on health and safety. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists for the day. I will let each of them quickly introduce themselves. So first up, we have Christian Kloss from HoloBuilder. Christian, would you like to introduce yourself and your company?
Absolutely. Hi, Emily. Thanks so much. My name is Christian Claus. I'm the CMO and head of partnerships here at HoloBuilder. I've been with HoloBuilder for the past 5 years, 3 years of which I was in product management, and recently moved to marketing and partnerships, where I get the pleasure of working with you all over at Forge and Autodesk to build integrations. And so I'm really happy to be chatting about that today. At HoloBuilder, we are a construction progress management solution that helps general contractors, engineering firms, and owners to document and communicate the job site progress in 360 degrees, making sure that everyone is on the same page, knowing what the site progress is, whether they're in the field or remote.
Great, thank you. All right, and then next we have Robert Shear from OpenSpace. Robert, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Yeah, I'm Robert Shear. I look after marketing and partnerships at OpenSpace, so very similar to Christian. And also very similar to Christian, OpenSpace is a photo documentation progress tracking tool. Oftentimes our customers call us Zoom for construction. So what if your construction site had a photographic memory and could participate in your Zoom calls? That's what we do. We'll show a little bit more of that later. I've been with OpenSpace about a year. Actually was with Autodesk about 8 years, leading up a few groups there. So definitely nice to be back in the Autodesk family and looking forward to the talk.
Yeah, I didn't know that, Robert.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Autodesk for the day.
A lot of dirt on a lot of people, so you just let me know what you want.
Okay. And then next we have Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Kelly with EarthCam. I've been with EarthCam 82 years. The company's been in business about 25 years. It's never boring over here. In addition to VR360 photography, we're known very much for our time-lapse cameras. We have security camera solutions. We incorporate drone footage. And this type of partnership has been the thing that has really brought back energy into our company over the last few years. It's been a real pleasure working with Autodesk based on the response time, the ability to integrate, program together, and really partner. So I appreciate being part of this call. We really believe that all of these partnerships and everybody who's in this industry providing visual documentation is going to help this industry continue to grow. Even in these times, visual information is more important than ever. So happy to be here. Thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's dive in and let's start with Christian from HoloBuilder. So Christian, to start, can you tell us a little bit about the types of projects that you work on, maybe share a quick demo to really let us see what your product does?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Emily. And I'm going to go ahead to share my screen. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Awesome. As I mentioned in the intro, HoloBuilder is a construction progress management platform. And what Lisa also mentioned is much of the problems that we are solving is the problem of capturing in the field today and the problem of unstructured data. Having, first of all, to take a bunch of photos in the field and then organizing them in long folder structures, which is then unstructured and incomplete in the end of the day. And that's kind of when this 360-degree cameras came out that we all are focusing on. And we built construction progress management platforms around that data in order to allow the teams in the field to quickly document the job site, automatically having it organized while you capture on the floor plan, and being able to compare time by time, side by side, so that you're able to compare two timestamps next to each other to see what the progress is from one moment in time to the other. And that's for general contractors, owners, engineering firms, and subs. It's really about having a secure, enterprise-ready, cloud-hosted environment where you're able to see what the site progress is without the need of being there. Now, it's really a solution, as mentioned, for the GCs, for the owners, and engineering firms and subs that allows you to manage progress remotely, that allows you to manage payment and invoice verification to avoid rework, and as well as many other workflows that enable you basically to do tasks that you would only be able to do otherwise if you had that site just in front of you, remotely or from anywhere. And important to notice that it's something that is useful throughout the life cycle of the project, whether that's planning, design, construction, and O&M. And that's an important part, being able to create a handover package of all that progress that has been going on in the field, and then handing that over to the owner. Let me go ahead and share a bit of a video. It all starts with a field engineer in the field, someone in the field capturing with a 360-degree camera on the fly, seamlessly and easy to use. Then the data is online, and that's kind of when it starts looking a little bit like street view for construction, if you want, where you're able to walk from one location to the other. Everything is also organized on a floor plan, which is something you can import from Autodesk, and that's one of our Forge integrations. Here you see the side-by-side comparison of two different moments in time in order to put it on a wall in an OSC meeting. Also, an integration with Autodesk is you can put the model right next to the progress to compare these. If you see anything noteworthy, you can make a markup that lives within Autodesk BIM 360, right in the 360 photo. So something that we are used to from floor plans, you can mark up 360s and then have them live within BIM 360 as a markup as well, and as an issue within BIM 360. As mentioned, there's Autodesk BIM 360, Navisworks, Revit, and there's PlanGrid as well as an integration. And we have integrated in 2017 for the first time with NextGen. You can do measurements on the data to get a good understanding remotely of what the dimensions are, and then exporting all of that data as a PDF to turn it into something more traditional again, that again, you can then send back to BIM 360 as well, where there's a little nifty integration that I'm going to show in a second as well. From an enterprise perspective, being able to see what data has been captured on an analytics dashboard, and then being able to hand over all of this data in the end of the day to the owner in case you're the GC, to have the owner be able to have the data offline. So really, as you can see, it's all about turning something which is a little bit of an afterthought in many projects into a streamlined workflow that is a capture purpose-built for the type of capture that you're doing, whether it's for bidding documentation for subs at the beginning of the job, whether it's pre-pour documentation where you actually hold the camera within the rebar, whether it's payment verification, invoice verification, whether it's for the actual as-built in the end of the day that you can hand over. Let me quickly jump over to the actual live product here. I think that can show how the integrations work quite nicely. This is how it looks. You have the 360-degree overview. You can jump floors, and these floor plans, by the way, are from our integration with BIM 360 that is through Forge. And this is just one moment in time, as mentioned. You can put two different times side by side in order to see, let's say here, this is the model, for instance, with the Navisworks add-in that we have, or you can put two different timestamps side by side to compare progress like that and put it on a wall in an OSC meeting to really be able to discuss with the owner, the trade partner, whoever, what progress was. Now, let me quickly show you one markup integration that we have through Forge, which I think is most interesting. This is our markup list here. These are all the markups that happen. This is a filterable list. By clicking on the one with a B, that is basically our integration to BIM 360, where you can see the markup pop up. And by opening that, I'm basically jumping to BIM 360 itself. And now it's going to show me that issue that was created within the 360-degree photo, where I can sync back and forth. And this is the Forge integration again coming into play. Another powerful integration that helps specifically VDC teams to scale throughout the organization and get adoption of this type of photo documentation is the project home integration, where you're able to see the exact same data that you saw just in the HoloBuilder platform, also here within BIM 360, which is very powerful. You can do all sorts of things like measure if you want, right here on the platform as well. And then finally, as promised, there is the floor plan integration as well, where you're able to upload floor plans that have a HoloBuilder link on it. This is now living within the BIM 360 environment. By clicking on a location, you are actually opening that specific location again within the BIM 360 Autodesk environment, so that you don't have to jump back and forth between platforms in order to create a closer connection between the field and the office and allow the teams that are remotely to really gain access easily to that data so that they don't need to jump between platforms. And as Lisa mentioned, the most important thing is that the different tools talk to each other that your teams are using, and in order to kind of increase efficiency and be able to work as a team on the data together.
Great.
Yeah, I hope that that was my 5 or 7 minutes.
No, that's great. That's super helpful. I'm curious, and I don't want to promote other partners, but you do have integrations that are similar with other partners to what you have in BIM 360. Is that correct?
Yeah, for instance, there's PlanGrid we are also integrated with, and yeah, that's right.
Cool. And then in terms of how you guys actually use Forge, I know you mentioned kind of one of the integrations, but can you talk a little bit more about how Forge helped you build this platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started all in 2017 when we did, I think, the very first integration with NextGen, which now enables you to bring documents from BIM 360, let this be floor plans or existing photos over to HoloBuilder to use as kind of the ground or where you capture up on. So that's very powerful. And then the other integration part that is where Forge made it happen is the markup capabilities, where you make an annotation on top of the 360-degree photo that then lives in both platforms at the same time and gets synced real time as well. When somebody makes a change within the markups in BIM 360, then these would get automatically updated within the markups in HoloBuilder. And this both works for our European customers in the European cloud, and it works for the US cloud for our US cloud, or EMEA, I think that's the Autodesk term.
And then what about security? How do you
Very important. Yeah, so we went through a solid security reviews in order to make sure that the data is in a safe environment, whether it's at rest or in transit. And the Forge platform is just wonderful. The team has been doing a great job as responsiveness goes, as well as with feedback and looking at the integrations before they go into the store as well. So it's one of those stores where you vet all the integrations that go on it in order to make sure that there are no security risks. So one can feel really good about being able to use that integration without anything going wrong.
Great. Okay, and then in terms of your customers and real customer examples, are you catering to customers kind of across the board in construction, or are you focused on specific niches? And then talk a little bit more about the benefits. I know we touched on some, but a little bit more real life. Who are your customers and what do they get from this?
Yeah, absolutely. So many of our customers are general contractors in the top 100, but that's more because there's, let's say, innovation teams that pick these things up early. We've also many general contractors that are our customers that are on, let's say, ENF 400 or beyond. Then owners makes up a big segment of our customers as well, that are demanding to have more solid documentation of what's behind the wall, what's below the ceiling, what's above the ceiling, what's within the concrete before you close it up. This way, the owner down the road, in case there's any remodelings going on, or in case there's any extensions of the building, it's very easy to just look at what's behind the wall to really get a true estimate of what the cost is. Also, general contractors use 360 documentation for pre-bid walks to give a good understanding of what this location looks like before the bids come in, to make sure that the bids come in more streamlined and you as a GC are sure and his estimating team assure that everyone has at least seen what the locations look like, and they can go back to reference it, which really helps in the bidding process. But it's really, especially these days, we're talking COVID, you have the ability to remotely access the team, be able to screen share just like we do here within, like by sharing our screen, or as we do with a Zoom, or within, let's say, Microsoft Teams. You can have HoloBuilder live in Microsoft Teams, pull it up so that teams in a different channel can be speaking about the site in real time while chatting about it. So really bringing the field and the office, or the field and the, depending, kitchen or living room, depending on where your office is these days, closer together. And that's beneficial even if one is in the trailer and not needing to go to that 5th floor and putting on all the gear. But it's especially beneficial when the site is just very much out of reach right now.
Great. Okay, and then last question for you before we move on. What's next for you guys? What's coming down the road? What are you focused on?
Yeah, there's two big focus areas. One specifically robotics. We believe in automating that capture process while keeping the data structured and in an organized place, not a capture at all approach, but being able to use robotics to capture very streamlined automatically. So that's our integration with Boston Dynamics, and maybe an integration you hinted to as well earlier, that allows you to document automatically using Spot, instead of needing to have a person walk around the field every day doing capturing. Instead, that team can focus on managing risk and trade partners instead of capturing. So that's an important one. And then there's, of course, artificial intelligence, site AI, as we call it. We actually announced that at AU a few years back, the ability to document and not only looking at the data, but also having the system understand what the progress is from a moment in time to the other, what has been installed from the moment in time. So that are really the exciting areas. And I guess that's also across the board where we see the industry head as a whole. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that today. It's really exciting because there's so much potential for the GC, for the owner, the engineering firms, and the trade partners in it.
Great, lots of room to grow. Okay, thank you, Christian. Let's move on to Robert. Robert, I'd love to hear a little bit more about OpenSpace, and if you have a demo or video you want to share, feel free.
Yeah, it's great following Christian because I get to basically say, yeah, what he said. So we're very similar solutions. I think I would sort of put a point on the main difference is that if you look at what Christian showed, you're going to see a floor plan with yellow dots. If you look at what OpenSpace provides, you're going to see a floor plan with a green squiggle. And let me explain that. So we're a video first solution where it's a walk where you want, we capture as you go, where other solutions are you walk to a point, you define that point, you take one picture. The difference is the speed and the simplicity and the coverage. So that's basically it. The integrations we have, we call them different things, but integrations with BIM 360, we have the Forge Viewer, we have the BIM Compare, we call it all that, are very, very similar. The difference is just the amount of space you can cover and how simple it is to do that. So that's, and thank you, Christian, for highlighting all the top points for all of our solutions. That's great. So I think you asked for a description of the product and a specific customer example. So I decided to just roll them both together. And so I'll share my screen and let Bold Construction show you how they're using the product.
Great.
All right, you can see that.
Yep.
OpenSpace is essentially like Google Street View for construction. It gives you full 360-degree photos that you can navigate and click around, jumping between all the different photos. So you can virtually walk your job site anywhere in the world at any time. Somebody is actually walking on site with a camera on their hard hat, and every half second is taking a photo, and it will actually take those photos onto a plan set and document where those photos took place. We can compare it to the BIM model and see, what's not complete compared to the model. and know exactly what we have to schedule going forward in our weekly planning sessions.
I've been able to use it during COVID state for owner walkthroughs to document things like in-wall inspections and box placements to really help communicate our design and our construction to the architects, the engineers, the owners, and the end users who can't walk the space currently.
Our architect engineering team, they're able to continue looking at issues. We had great examples where the second we were doing the walks, people were looking at the pictures and seeing the social distancing.
We're trying to limit the people on our sites, but they're still able to get a good feel for the progress and the urgency to which design decisions need to happen.
We have teams that are spread out so far geographically that can't always make it to site every week. Now they can see it multiple times a week with the status changes that are happening. We can use this to look and track our productivity across all of our crews, holding people accountable with earned value management.
Every minute of every day needs to be spent productively. OpenSpace really has allowed me to do that. The initial thoughts around it were that this was going to serve as a COVID reaction. The more I reflect on it, I really think this software is going to go beyond just the current time.
So we found through our use of OpenSpace so far incredible value that we're going to continue carrying forward in this project and projects to come.
All of our projects should be looking at how can OpenSpace provide value for them, for not only them, but also the owner, the design team, to have more access to our job sites, especially during these times.
There's tons of aspects that we're still uncovering, and we're documenting all of the really cool use cases that people are coming up with.
Great.
Okay, and then I think I just mentioned one or two other small things. So because the camera, there's a question here on the Zoom chat about if your head is in the shot. So you can see there it really isn't. The camera sits up high enough that you miss a little bit of the floor, but not much. The other thing is because the camera is automatically taking photos as you're walking, your hands are free. And so you can use your phone. Yep, that's cool with the background. I gotta get closer to me. Use your phone to take what we call field notes. So similar to what Christian said with markups, field notes are you're walking, you take a picture with your phone, which is high resolution and detailed, and that gets automatically pinned to the plan. And so that is where our integration, our primary integration with BIM 360 is those can become issues and RFIs. And then we also offer the homepage integration and the home card integration that Christian showed as well.
Cool. And then I'm curious about the hardware. Do you need specifics? Is it any kind of cameras that capture 360 views?
It's a great question. Yeah, we do a little bit of custom work with the manufacturers to get the firmware in such a way that it takes 2 images a second, that all the photo parameters are locked down for optimum performance. And so you don't just pick one off the shelf. Right now we're working primarily with Insta360, and we have 2 cameras available there. They're generally available on Amazon, B&H Photo, you name it. And we primarily work with the manufacturers on what their next generation camera is. We also support the Ricoh Theta, which I think you saw with HoloBuilder, and that's more of a snapshot camera. But there are a few that are supported and they're on our website, but they're typically less than $400. And then we send you a little mounting kit that lets you connect it to your hard hat with a magnet. So you just literally go click, push go, and walk.
And it typically only takes one person or camera if they're walking the site, right? Or does
it depends, but yeah, we typically see one camera. I mean, you can do probably 150,000 square feet an hour with our system, because you saw that gentleman with the mask just walking. You just walk and capture it. So one camera is typically enough. We do have projects where they have 3 or 4, mainly because they don't want to pass the camera up and down the floors if it's a 40-story building.
Sure.
But typically one camera is enough for most projects.
And I'm curious how often you typically have the customer would have someone walk around. And
yeah, that's a great question, and I hope it's something we get to. We've seen a dramatic change in behavior since COVID. It used to be, let's walk, and as Christian said, let's use a better way to get this unstructured data into a structured format, so we have the images for later, kind of in the can, if you will. That's changed dramatically, and so that might be once a week, once a month. We're seeing walks on average now a couple times a week, because this really has turned into a collaboration platform for remote teams. And so I hope we talk about that later, but it's just,
Yeah.
our captures have doubled in the last couple of months. Our uses of field notes, which are our way of the field communicating with the trailer or the office, has gone up 500 to 600%. And we're having our telemedicine moment as an industry, I think. And I think we all should understand that we're right in the middle of a big transition.
Yeah, that's great. And we will try to get to that a little bit more on the COVID topic later on in the session. I'm curious, I was reading on your website a little bit about AI components. Can you delve into a little bit more about the dashboarding AI analytics you provide?
Yeah, so our company was sort of founded by 3 MIT PhDs who sort of were AI before it was called AI, right? So we definitely have the foundation there. It's a video first platform. One of the founders created a platform to really analyze video feeds in real time. And so the data depth and the technology depth is there. We prioritize simplicity and speed in this market. Otherwise, there's no room for a learning curve on this stuff. So we focused on the capture side. And the capture side, the way that we can stitch everything together so quickly, typically within 20 to 30 minutes after you've uploaded a site or a walk, is AI. We are aligning from scan to scan. Every time you do a walk, the system learns the facility a little more and gets faster and faster. So you've seen it there. The other thing is we just announced something called Clearsight, and it's like Christian said, we're all heading the same direction, which is how do you take all these images and turn them into things you can reason with: windows, doors, walls, rebar, that type of stuff. And so we are building out that platform now. And I think where we think we're going to be different is, again, in the scale and the speed. It is a video first platform. We built the pipeline to really handle a lot of data. And we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 construction images captured so far, about 1.5 billion square feet. And remember, those are all sequenced, located, time-stamped construction movies with images after images after images that overlap. So that gives us the ability to really track what's going on pretty well. So yeah, AI is easy to say, hard to do. So I'm not going to overpromise here, but we're going to see some pretty interesting stuff coming out in the next 6 months or so.
Cool. And you answered my question then, what's next for you guys? Without focusing in on that, was there anything else you wanted to add on that topic?
We'd like to get back to our office at some point because we have a nice office. But yeah, it's all about progress tracking. It's all about site conditions and safety. It's just really about having another set of eyes on the project. And we call it an expert visual co-pilot. So we believe that builders are going to keep building. It's not going to be robots that are not going to take over the world. We believe that it's about skill, craft, and trade. But we want to be the one that's there watching things, and not watching, but really just sort of checking in to count stuff and do the mundane things that often get overlooked.
Cool. And then one last question for you before we move on to Lisa. I'm curious about the challenges, either the big ones that you've already overcome or the big ones that you're facing, not just you, but as the industry as a whole, perhaps.
How much time do we have? Yeah, I think you prepped us for this. So 2 quick things on the challenges, and I hope we get into them later. One is, being beholden to these consumer cameras is great on one side because they're cheap, they're awesome. The other side is, you're beholden to these consumer cameras. So we definitely spend a lot of time chasing that type of stuff and just make sure they work really well. The other one, I think the challenge and the opportunity is, you just got to keep stuff simple. You can't fall for the next new thing. You've got to make your stuff work, and you got to make it work for everybody. And I think we've had really good discipline around that. And so the challenge of just making sure you finish what you start, I think is a challenging thing for all companies, especially startups who are running so fast.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, thank you.
Autodesk doesn't have that problem. I know that.
No, none of us do. Great, thank you, Robert. That was awesome. And we will get back to some of those points when we move into general Q&A. And I would encourage the audience, before we start with Lisa, please do submit questions. You guys are shy this morning, but any questions that you guys have for any of the specific panelists or in general about the space, please submit them via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will make sure we answer them at the end. So now let's move to Lisa. Lisa, can you tell us about EarthCam and what you guys do?
Yes, I'll back clean up. I'll get everybody around the bases, and the whole industry will be extremely successful. Thank you. I'm excited again to be here. EarthCam, we're a little bit different. We started as a construction camera company. We traditionally put cameras on poles, cameras on rooftops. We still do that, but everything is pivoted to what kind of information and data can you find within those cameras, and the content that they provide. It was easy and you know, obvious pivot to doing VR 360 cameras when they were available. We were already doing some interior photography, and so many components of construction on the inside obviously have a lot to do. So after the walls go up, while the walls go up, it's good to have all of that documentation. I will show a video and talk over it as well, and then mention some specific clients. So let me pull this up here. And should be all good. So for us, we've done a lot of different integrations with Autodesk, and it's really been side by side with a partnership. What you're looking at is the Raiders Stadium, which is almost finished, and allegedly they're going to have a game in September there, probably with no fans. We have multiple exterior cameras on this project, plus an interior camera. And this is Navisworks pulled the model in and are able to compare our real-time images from the cameras to the model. Rather than a side-by-side, we have a customizable X-ray tool. So you're literally able to kind of move it around, adjust the size of it. You can pull it up to a side-by-side, but again, it's analyzing progress, taking a look at planned versus actual. And then pushing that into, you know, a direct single sign-on into BIM 360. We're a partner card integrator. We also are able to move all the images in here, mark things up, save them, share them. This is, again, another project looking at the exterior. We can change the opacity. We pulled a lot of the tools from Autodesk products in. And then here, in addition to the exterior webcams, you're going to see our 360 images. So this was a project executive who walked around once a week on this particular project because it happened to be their headquarters, a construction company that was building out their own headquarters. And along the bottom there, you're going to see multiple little images, and that was weekly images. And again, on the interior, we've got this X-ray tool. So you're able to literally overlay and see behind walls and look through the progress. We do run computer vision analytics on this to hinge it, as this is my non-techie word, on edges to be able to line these images up. Pushing these things, obviously, with comments into BIM 360 where it matters, into RFIs, having conversation where you need to have the visual confirmation of things that are happening. So what we at EarthCam do, again, it's a real combination of the exterior, the interior, the very high resolution. You're going to be able to see some pretty crazy zoom in here, and there's obviously a ton more on the website. But the exterior, especially robotic cameras, we're able to multiply the images on top of each other to create an individual image that's much more detailed than any camera alone can do. So it's less about, you see live streaming video here. It's less about just having a camera up there, but what can you really do? What can you spruce it up with? And then really what we're known for, and you talked about sharing this on YouTube, you know, we're very proud of the fact that we can, that we're able to, we've got over 50-some million views on YouTube for construction. It's not as high as like a cat playing the piano, but you know, it's pretty high for the construction industry. And we're seeing a lot of interest. What's happened that's really cool in the construction industry, and I might be jumping a little bit ahead on the questions you're going to ask, is that we've moved into technology. People talked about fintech, you know, years ago. There's been healthcare technology. In this industry, you know, there are lots of fights about BIM and things being lagging. We're finally at a spot, I think, where all of us are coming together, and we're in a visual world where having this information where it needs to be, which is in a dashboard like BIM 360, which is comparing things to models, looking at the planned, looking at the pre-con versus the actual and what's happening day to day, is more important than ever. Not just important, but accepted and expected.
Cool. And so you brought up the example of the Raiders Stadium. So it sounds like you are pretty broad in the range of customers that you cater towards. And I was reading that it's not just construction, right? It's also kind of broader than the construction industry.
Yeah, so, and that's a really good, we didn't talk about this ahead of time for anybody on the call, but it tees me up really well because we've been known for so many years as the World Trade Center, the Panama Canal. And, you know, we do convenience stores now. You know, construction has changed a lot and camera technology has changed a lot in the same way that we used to spend, well, not me, but people spent a lot of money on a flat screen TV and now you can get a decent one for $250. Camera costs have come down too. The 360 cameras, it's rare that we run across a company where they don't have somebody who has their own camera that maybe they've just been techie and wanted to play with. And so we've all, you know, the three on this panel have provided the software for them to be able to do that in their company. That does go into development, into developers. It goes into property management. It goes into real estate. It can even go into entertainment. So there are a lot of different uses for it. Our company, you know, right now is looking at better lives through visual information. By being able to provide images in conjunction with something, you're able to really have a conversation. There's, you know, there's he said, she said, and then the picture, and the picture is objective. The ones on the webcams are just taking the pictures without any human interaction. And so they're going to provide you a real clear view of what's happening on the job site.
Oh. And I was actually very surprised when you said 25 years at the beginning of this. So
Yeah.
how has the company evolved? What did you guys start as, and what has your road been like?
We're probably way ahead of our time for the first 15. And so it was really with like the Turners of the world. You know, we started as a company. It was literally, most people on this call may not remember this, but there was a time when there was no internet. And it was when the internet became a thing. And it was like, you know, we come from a creative background. You know, we really, when we design things, we look at it from a user-friendly basis. When it comes to the time-lapse movies, there's a lot of production that goes into that to make it something that the general contractor can use on their next project to try and promote that. It's a great deliverable for a general contractor to give to an owner. And so we started more on the entertainment side of having video and letting the world watch the world, and turned it really after 9/11. Actually, we had cameras down there by the World Trade Center that were helping to document and provide images and video on rescue and recovery efforts. And from there, it turned into a rebuilding effort. And we built a software around what the project teams would need for that. And it's continued to grow. And that's now everything that we do. And then, you know, to pivot as to what's really happened over the last few years, and this is where Forge is very important, is that we were a hardware company with our own software. And Autodesk had a lot of software, and people were designing it, you know, they were, you know, BIM, and they were designing models and everything, but all of us connecting is very new in the world of construction. And so what Forge has allowed us to do is to kind of whiteboard and come up with amazing things. Wouldn't it be great if we could look at a real-time image compared to a model? It seems like that would be a no-brainer, but it had to be built. And we had to sit down together and do that. We had to make that connection. We had to talk about APIs. We had to hire more programmers and developers. You know, we hired more people in that department over the last 3 years than all of the other departments in our company combined. We've transitioned from a hardware to a software. Anybody can use the camera, but what are you going to do with it? You know, anybody can have a microphone, but are you going to sing like Beyonce? You know, like you have to be able to translate that data and put it somewhere where it's meaningful to the client and the customer. And the Autodesk partnership has really allowed us to do that. I talked to the developers, and you know, the quickness in response, the clarity of the answers, the amount of, you know, it's probably for them, it's play. We can try a lot of different things, and we're programming together to really bring that solution to the client. And that's changed from us being one company to partnering with lots of different companies now to bring one solution out to the AEC industry.
Cool. I love to hear that story, kind of starting with the innovation and then just kind of pivoting and really evolving. So that's awesome. Okay, and then just a couple more questions for you before we open it up to more general Q&A. I am curious if you could just summarize a little bit around when customers come to you, what are their main goals and what are the main benefits that they see?
So we have customers, you know, everybody's mentioned the ENR 400, you know, we've got the Mortensons, the Turners, you know, the Hunter Roberts, various people, Burns McDonnell, that we have agreements with. We also have owners. And so the general contractor typically likes to really get in the nitty gritty and know what's going on with their subs on site and be able to communicate with that, but also provide transparency to the owner. The owner oftentimes, they sometimes like the entertainment value. They like a 360 picture to be able to even do like a TBT to say like, look before this milestone happened on my project, as well as being able to pass it off to property management. So it's really, you know, from a sales point of view, it's finding out who we're talking to and finding out what their main need is. But there are a lot of things that we're able to fill right now, from project documentation, project management software integrations. You know, we do partner, you know, we partner with PlanGrid as well. So people come to us because it's either spec'd in and they say they need a camera, or they think it's a cool idea to get a camera. And then we're able to tell them, well, this is actually all the stuff you can do with a camera. And it's kind of a fun journey to be able to say there's more there than you ever thought it was, because they think that they know what a camera is, and they think that they know what a picture is, because we're still all taking them on our phones on the job site, but being able to put it somewhere where it saves time and money, and helps to talk about best practices and the next versions of the product and the project and everything is pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. And then what are you guys focusing in on next? What are your main kind of goals or path forward?
I mean, the first thing that popped into my head was cheeseburgers, but I think that that's just because
It's at lunchtime where you are?
Yeah. No, it's all about data and information. You know, we are always going to push the envelope and have really high definition photos and videos. We are always going to have really awesome time-lapse movies that are going to win awards for our clients, but the data is where it's at. AI has been mentioned, computer vision has been mentioned, we're working with machine learning. We're partnering more than ever, and we're trying to partner with your partners. So we look at like a triax, we look at a drone deploy, and we try to come up with, you know, instead of, you know, a 2-solution thing with us in Autodesk, like what's the triangle that's going to make it an even stronger solution for that customer. And those types of partnerships are key. And again, it's putting visual information, reliable, high def, you know, information where it needs to be. And then providing information. Project progress has been mentioned, that's important. Vehicle identification and tracking, that's important. Security and safety, we have security recording on the cameras, you know, that's important. Access control, having visual confirmation of distancing on job sites, you know, because people have, you know, different types of asset trackers on themselves, but then having a confirmation of that visually. So it really is about all of the different data, what materials are on site and being recycled, and can we identify those in the picture using, you know, algorithms. So there's a lot of cool stuff. We have a 25 years catalog of pictures to be able to analyze, and it is about finding out more information, conversations with the clients, and then partnering with more people so that we're bringing them a simple solution. You know, just turn on your computer and the information is there. It's in the report that you want it in. You don't have to walk around and do anything. We even have photographers that can go do it for you. It's just there in your report and you can make a decision.
Great, very cool. All right, thank you, Lisa. So while we wait for any attendees to get up the courage to ask a question, I want to dive a little bit more into something that you've all talked about, right? Which is, how has COVID affected your industry dynamics? And I'm curious, you know, from both a positive and negative side, and or just any changes that you guys have had to make to accommodate this. I feel like it's a pretty good space that you're in for this remote working, but kind of open floor if anyone wants to take it. What changes have you seen and how are you approaching this?
As Robert mentioned, we see an increase on the capture side of things, and we see an increase on the usage side of things, of actually using the data. Also, the PDF reporting that we have, we see a 10x increase of using that in order to communicate the data to new stakeholders that maybe haven't used that type of data format before, so that you have something to print out. So it really pressing 2 years, I would say, of digitization. That's the famous quote, right? Into 2 or 3 months since this, or 152 days, if you want, since this has started, at least for us here in the United States. And we really see an intake in adoption. The role within VDC, we've seen shift a little bit, whereas before it was a lot about, okay, here's technology, you want to try it. Now it's a lot, it's like, hey, we need something, like, what do you have? So that really changed the dialogue a lot, and helping teams to scale technologies throughout their organization, which is traditionally and still a big challenge. So working with the companies, larger companies, the Hensel Phelps, the Skanskas, the Mortensons, the Herrero Balls, the AECOMs, or the Haskell's, some of our customers, and many others out there. Some of the challenges many organizations face is scaling technology, if it's successful on a few projects, on all of the projects. And one thing that COVID has really done is facilitate and increase that dialogue to spread the technology that was successful on a few projects to more projects. That's on the plus side of things. Of course, on the downside of things, there's a ton to talk about when we speak about just the human impact it has had, the need for increased social distancing, being able to work less as a crew in the field, being able to not be so close to each other. And that's also where one of the reasons, I guess, the increase in capture that Robert mentioned as well, we see, because people want to have only the people that actually put work in place as much as possible in the field, and give space to those so that they have space to socially distance. Everyone else that could possibly view the site remotely through the tools that we all provide, that is kind of the goal, to make as safe of a space for everyone putting work in place as possible.
I would also just add, visual information is more important now than ever. When job sites shut down and we don't know what's coming in the future, they needed to close up those job sites. They needed to have photographs of what assets were on site immediately, and one person needed to go out there. And if you just took, 50 photographs of a bunch of stuff and equipment everywhere with no context of where it is, say in a site plan, then you've just got a bunch of photographs and you don't really know what's happening in the middle of the upending of an entire global world in a global pandemic. This is how people communicate now when they're able to get online and do this. There's a lot less travel to job sites. There's going to be people working on job sites. But this is what we're going to expect. We're in a visual world. A picture isn't worth 1,000 words, it's worth $1,000. It costs money to run all this stuff. Even in Robert's background, I start to calculate what is all the information that's in that picture back there. Is there rebar, is there framing? There's a lot of information. So our goal is to contribute to the world in a way that people can be making money. People need to make money, people need to survive. And if this is how they can communicate about what assets are on a job site, then we're going to continue to push for the safest way. But construction has to be done with people out there, but other people, ancillary people that can communicate this way, or maybe make decisions without having to be out there, this provides a big value. And we're seeing a lot of, it's been a very busy couple months as we've figured everything out, thank goodness.
Actually, quick note to what Lisa said, and to jump on it, it really turned the need of the technology not to be technology, but really to be a tool that always performs. And that's, we've done a lot. That's how we always looked at building HoloBuilder, it being a tool, not being technology or something fancy, but really being just a tool that always works. And that investment really pays off now, because it has to work. More than ever before, since it's being so relied upon, since the access to the job site can't be there. I think that's another impact COVID had.
I'll try to land it in one job we had, because what everyone said is exactly right. It's massive tailwinds for remote collaboration. We had one job in LA. First, what happened is the superintendent was in his 70s and didn't feel like he was at risk, so he just didn't want to go, and his employer was on board with that. So now all of a sudden, the most experienced set of eyes is remote. Then what happened is the inspectors, who also were in the at-risk category, decided they weren't going to go to the job site. And then what happened is some of the crew got COVID. So let's pick that apart real quickly. So having the most experienced set of eyes gone was critical for the project success. And so they used OpenSpace daily, and the junior team was able to come up to speed. The superintendent who was remote was able to keep track remotely of the job site, make field notes, remote field notes through the website, a web application, and keep that moving. The inspector stuff really blew our minds, because inspectors have been resisting photo documentation for, I don't know, since cameras existed. And the fact that they're now saying, yeah, go ahead and do these minor inspections, not the big ones, but these minor inspections with cameras was just incredible. And so there is a big shift happening. And like I said before, it's telemedicine was always a thing that was 10 years in the future. And it was always something that was going to happen. Well, it happened. If you look at the numbers of telemedicine, it's up like 6,000%. And it's going to stick. And I think the same thing's happening with us. And then the final thing is, Lisa, when you said Robert's background, I got really nervous. I realized you're talking about this background, not my, like, how did she know? Yeah.
Okay. That's great. And
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a separate, Zoom meeting.
I didn't think there was evidence. Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes left, but just to wrap up, I'm curious what advice you guys have for partners or customers out there who may be facing uncertainty right now, either about this technology or about how to proceed with kind of, construction projects and in this space with everything going on. What have you seen work for your, successful customers and clients during this time? Or in general, what would you tell them?
I'll jump in since my mic's on. Yeah, I mean, just look at the Bolt video. I think what happened, just like Lisa said, people were taking this, people were a little bit panicked at the beginning, obviously, and they wanted to capture the job site so that they could catalog things, they could share it with their subs when the jobs spun back up again. And so it was very much kind of a point in time. What we've seen, though, is people have taken this and have adopted it as sort of just the way things get done. And so I would say the best practice is the stuff's easy, whether it's our stuff, HoloBuilder, it's easy to use. It provides value day one. I would just say get going. As far as for partners out there, I think back to my point of just for construction, just keep it simple and make sure the stuff works. You don't get another bite at the apple in this industry. Once you've soured the job, you don't go back. And so just keep it simple, make sure it works. The Forge stuff takes a huge amount of stuff off our plate that we don't have to worry about in terms of model viewing and integrations and all that stuff. So it just makes us a lot more effective, that we can focus on what we do well and make sure it all works.
Okay. Anything to add? Lisa?
You take it, Lisa.
Okay. I would say in this time that this is very much a time where we're all trying to operate business like usual. And it's honestly a really good time to go easy on ourselves. So there was a lot of information presented on this call, and thank goodness it's recorded and people can take bits and pieces of it. I would ask questions. Technology can be, nobody wants to admit what they don't know. And it's the type of thing that tends to get handed off to somebody sometimes to research where they're not sure where to start. We're here as resources. I know that Autodesk is too. And so what we want to do ultimately is help the industry be more successful. We want to help people, go to work wherever that may be safely, and continue to do that, as much as they need to take care of what they need to. So technology can be overwhelming, and there's a lot of overwhelming stuff right now. So we're here as resources. When it comes to adopting new technology, the myths are that it's complicated and expensive. It is not, and it doesn't have to be. And I think that we have moved from a nice to have to a must have in some avenues, and we'll continue to move in that direction. But we're all there as partners. And I think that if I was going to say to somebody at the end of this call, what is your takeaway? it would be to pick up the phone and call me and buy a lot of stuff. No. The takeaway would literally be, there's a lot of information out there, and we understand that, and we understand that all of us are lingo-y and we can do that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're also all partners in making this industry really successful. And so reach out just with questions. People only reach out when they have a very specific need, and I think that we can provide them with more education. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to at least do some of that here.
And then to I guess just basically echo what Lisa said, there's so much content now available, webinars. We have 2 webinars every week where we train users on how to use it, just because it is the most efficient way of getting new teams onboarded. There's increased turnover happening on many job sites. Using that visual information to train one new team member joining to show what happened on the job site. It's very, very powerful. Using it as a learning tool, as some of the more experienced workforce is leaving the sites for temporary or longer term. It's just a powerful tool to have. And also, I think this webinar really sums up nicely that the construction, let's say, technology space is collaborating more and more like our customers are collaborating, which is all together in order to make integrations happen and make the data flow. We believe that no technology can stand by itself, as all construction companies work with each other in one form or shape. So if you are a partner thinking about integrating with Forge, or anyone else on this panel for that matter, I just strongly encourage that. Customers really appreciate it. Data silos are not anymore an option. It's something customers demand. And then, yeah, seeing technology as a tool rather than just as technology, especially right now where it just has to work. Just sum it up.
Great, thanks. That's a great ending, and thank you for plugging Forge for me. You guys all did a great job of that, and I didn't even ask that, so appreciate it. So I know it's 8 o'clock. Thank you to everyone who joined today. The session was recorded. We will be posting it. You can find the recording link on our Forge blog. The link is up here on the screen right now. We're going to be focusing on construction again in our next webinar in 2 weeks. And we're going to focus a little bit more on reality capture in that webinar, but please make sure to join us. You'll get a registration link and a follow-up email from the session today. If you do not register for the next session as well, although I think this time if you registered for one, you probably registered for the next as well. So just feel free to show up. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Christian, for sharing the great work that you guys have done. I really enjoyed having you on the panel today. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.